Hello. Today, let's talk about not kidding. Today, let's talk about why scolding is the dumbest and most terrible thing you can do to your child, or in general. And to briefly talk about the origin of scolding, we can see in a lot of old texts and even just like older generations of people, they tend to use punishment and loud voices to ensure like discipline and the following of order and rules. And that's really it. We don't have to do too much learning of the origin, because the main problem is decades ago it has been proven that these methods work terribly. They work poorly, whether it's building a good relationship with the person you're trying to teach or trying to help. It's even bad for the person that's scolding. The thing that people have to understand is you aren't in the military, so there's no point to yell. Now, scolding isn't just yelling. Sometimes it can be condescending speech. Maybe you're repeating yourself over and over again, assuming the person you're talking to is like a child who doesn't understand basic language. Let's talk about the really basic and simple effects that happens when we scold, or when we are scolded at. And you don't need to be a psychologist. You don't need to be someone who specializes in mental health to realize these things, right? Because when we are scolded at, when someone yells at us, let's say we have a job in software and we do coding. Now, I coded something wrong, and then my boss tells me, "You did a terrible job." What is that? How is that gonna earn me money? Did I pay you like $20 an hour for you to make a mistake? No. So fix it. Now, who's gonna actually want to do anything? I wouldn't want to do anything. If I had self-respect, I would not want to help this boss. And even if I didn't have self-respect, your mind is in stress. And under stress, we become emotional. When people become emotional, no one will do anything of productivity. That is it. I think one of the big reasons that people do essentially scold is, one, it comes from older generations. Monkey see, monkey do. But that's not an excuse to use terrible methods of teaching, right? Slavery used to be a common thing. Doesn't mean you should do it anymore. It's not to compare scolding to slavery, but it was just a bad practice. It doesn't matter. It is a really clear sign of a lack of emotion regulation. And I feel bad both for people that get scolded at and the people that are doing the scolding, because it comes from mental problems. Not to say that's a disability, but it is a dysregulation within the mind and the way they have learned to communicate with people. Because in the end, it's a way of communication, and it's terrible. Some of you might argue that there aren't better methods, but that's just a pure lie. So let's talk about it. One really basic one is to just have a stern conversation with the person that you're trying to teach, or maybe trying to correct. Let's say this person makes a mistake, whatever mistake it is. Instead of trying to correct them like immediately, sometimes you want to know why they committed the mistake. And the way that you ask questions is really important, because you could ask you could phrase it like, oh, it's okay, but can you tell me why did you do this? Versus, have you never been taught basic whatever? It sounds really condescending, and people become defensive. And when you're teaching people anything, you don't want them to become defensive because it's a fight or flight response. When we're in that fight response, you will not be in the mental state to receive information. That is really basic understanding of how people work and how communication works. And so I really don't understand, although I also do understand, but it's just sad to see people do the complete opposite. Example we can use is if we're trying to teach a parent or someone of authority to do something like this. No, highly unlikely, sure, but let's say someone was scolding someone, and then we go up to the scolder and we say, "What is wrong with you? Why are you scolding people like that? You are a terrible authority, and people shouldn't listen to you. Have you never been taught basic teaching methods?" Now, how do you think the person in authority would think? They'd probably think, who's this piece of crap that's talking to me right now? I'm gonna have him fired and have his life ruined. Right? But instead, if we go in a more compassionate route where we say, hey, I realize that you're scolding a lot of maybe employees. And then you continue to explain why that might not be good. And maybe even before that, you asked, is everything okay within your family? Do you feel happy about yourself? Now, there are nuances where, you don't ask someone, are you depressed or anything? Or sometimes it's like you ask them different things like, oh, how's work going? Right? How's this project or whatever? Those are nuances that sometimes some are easier to learn than others, but that's life. The more you communicate, the more you realize how people interact to different questions and like different words, even sometimes. I've definitely experienced that when I was doing like teaching and just general conversation where certain words, like people relate to like the word just story, or someone really relates to the word like power, stuff like that. And when you realize those cues and these points, I guess, communication becomes a lot more easier, and it should never be a focus on like a power imbalance, right? It should be about connection and understanding. So the people out there that continue to scold, I wish the best for you, because when people scold, I do think that I hope that their intention is to help someone. Maybe because sometimes you realize that some people only scold the people that they care about, which is really paradoxical or ironic, I guess. It doesn't do anything. It worsens your relationship with the people that you care about, and the lesson that you want to teach will not be learned. That is it. And to the people that have to deal with scolding, I wish you the best. I'd recommend like philosophies of related to like stoicism, and just trying to maintain self-control and also protect yourself. Don't put yourself in situations that harm yourself. When someone that you don't have to be close to scolds you, I guess. Leave the situation and don't continue to let that person berate you. And if the timing's right, maybe you can speak up for yourself, because they need to know the harm that they're doing. And yeah, they really need to know. Because if they don't know, this is going to continue for the rest of their lives. But it's also it's not your responsibility to change someone or to help someone even. So yeah, take care of yourself and love yourself. And you have to strongly believe that, with the premise that you are having like good and healthy values, that no matter what someone else says to you, you are worthy. You aren't stupid. And I hope you'll never forget that.